My people, welcome to Being Real with Alice. My people, another one don't happen again. Table does scatter. I want to make una watch by una self how the UK judge they sentenced ekeremadu to 10 years imprisonment.
To commit an offence of human trafficking. You brought a young man to London to exploit him. The exploitation was the proposed donation of a kidney for reward. The reward was to be the payment of money and a chance to work in the United Kingdom. People trafficking across international borders for the harvesting of human organs is a form of slavery. It treats human beings and their body parts as commodities to be bought and sold. It is a trade that preys on poverty and misery and desperation. The evidence shows that those who are impoverished, often living in multi-dimensional poverty, desperate for a better life, and ignorant of the true risks, are sometimes willing to donate their organs for money or the chance to work in the UK. Significant risks attached to such donation without proper aftercare. You each played a part in that despicable trade. You, Abina Abetta, underwent a kidney transplant at the Royal Free Hospital in London in 2021. You said that you and your donor were cousins. That was a lie. The clinicians at the Royal Free and the independent assessors at the Human Tissue Authority were taken in by your lie. They believed that the donor was acting altruistically as a good Samaritan. The transplant went ahead. There is no evidence that the donor has been given the necessary aftercare. It is not necessary for me to make a finding as to whether you exploited the donor. But what is clear is that you learned from your experience that it was possible to manipulate and corrupt the regulatory system by using a fabricated affidavit, by lying about your relationship with the donor, and by coaching the donor to lie. You, Senator Ekeremadu, and you, Dr. Beatrice Ekeremadu, have a daughter, Sonia. She is very ill. She is suffering from FSGS, nephrotic syndrome. She needs a kidney transplant. Everybody has enormous sympathy for her and for the impact on each of you seeing your daughter's suffering. Sonia's uncle, Diwe Ekeremadu, knew Abina Abetta from medical school. He got in touch. Abina Abetta offered to help find a donor. A possible donor was identified. By law, his name may not be published. I will call him C. C grew up in a village where he had no electricity or running water. He left school at the age of 15 and he went to Lagos, where he sold phone accessories from a wheelbarrow in a market. He was earning about 3,500 naira a day, the equivalent of just £7. Tests in Nigeria showed that his blood group was the same as Sonia. He agreed to come to the UK. I am sure that he did not at any point agree to donate a kidney to Sonia altruistically. There was no reason why he should do so. He was not related to your family. He did not know Sonia or any other member of your family. Nothing was put in place to secure his future health care needs if he donated a kidney. The wealth and power inequality and disparity between you and C could not be more marked. You, ekeremadu, are a senator in Nigeria's National Assembly. You have held high political office. You had many staff, including domestic staff, maids, chefs and drivers. You own multiple properties around the globe. There is evidence of as many as 40. More than £400,000 went into your bank account over a 6-month period. By contrast, C was unable to afford a £25 fare to travel from Lagos to Abuja. You each conspired together to bring C to the UK in order to exploit him. You all knew that was unlawful. You, ekeremadu, had been part of the legislature that had introduced the law that made that conduct a criminal offence in Nigeria. You, Abina Abeta, secured the visa. You did so by telling a lie that C and Sonia were cousins, the same lie that you had told in respect of you and your donor. You also secured a fabricated affidavit testifying to their relationship as cousins, just as you had done for your transplant. You asked the ekeremadu family to pay C a fee of 3.5 million naira. The jury rejected your account that the fee was for his loss of earnings. The fee was paid by you, ekeremadu. The jury rejected your account that you knew the fee was a scam and that no reward would ever be paid to C. The evidence suggests that a corrupt relationship was established with a member of Royal Free's staff, an interpreter who agreed to help with, quotes, coaching the boy, end quotes, and to provide the, quotes, relevant interpretation, end quotes. You, ekeremadu, were instrumental in establishing and controlling that corrupt relationship. The clinicians at the Royal Free Hospital once again believed the untruthful account that the donor and recipient were cousins. There was, however, a concern about the risk to C given his age and his ethnicity. After the doctors interviewed him, they were concerned that he was not sufficiently mature and motivated to be an organ donor. This time, the transplant was not approved. There was no report to the safeguarding team and no report to the police, despite the indicators that the donor was a victim of trafficking. Those indicators included the tenuous nature of the relationship between C and Sonia, the limited evidence to support that relationship, and C's clear lack of understanding about the process, and also his reaction to being told that he was at the hospital to discuss a kidney donation. In the course of the trial, Hugh Davis KC suggested that a lesson to be learned from this case is that clinicians must be alive to the risk of trafficking and report cases like this when concerns arise. I entirely agree. After the decision had been made that the transplant would not go ahead, there was a sinister development. A consultant nephrologist and another man examined C at the place where he was being kept. It is not necessary to make a finding as to the true purpose of that examination, but it is easy to understand why C believed that he was going to be taken back to Nigeria for the transplant to be conducted there. On the 3rd of May, when C was due to return to Nigeria, he ran away. He spent 2 nights sleeping rough. On the 5th of May, exactly a year ago, he attended Staines police station. There he saw Sonia Nicholas, a police inquiry officer, and Detective Constable Hannah Paisley. As a result of them carefully listening to C, it was recognised that he might be a victim of trafficking. Arrangements were made to secure his protection and his well-being. Subsequently, each of you was arrested, charged, prosecuted, and convicted. C suffered a loss of his personal autonomy because you kept his passport and exercised control over his movements and his basic human needs. He was put in fear that he would be subject to the forced removal of his kidney without any appropriate aftercare. Now he is scared to return home to Nigeria. As he puts it, he is having to start his life again. I considered that a substantial compensation order might well be appropriate for the loss and damage he has been caused by your conduct. I asked the Crown to inquire as to C's attitude towards such an order. That is because, in some cases, victims of crime do not want compensation from the offender, and an award of compensation might even risk causing further distress. A police officer carefully explained the meaning, reason and purpose of a compensation order to C. He immediately responded that he did not wish to entertain compensation. The officer says, quotes, C spoke with moral conviction. Despite understanding the material benefit receiving compensation may have for him, he adamantly said he did not need or want anything from the bad people. He no longer wants them to have any involvement with him in any capacity, irrespective of the financial benefit he stood to make. C said that he wanted to put this entire ordeal behind him and move on with his life. He believes this to be the right and fair thing to do. End quotes. 2 days later, the officer spoke to C again. He remained, quotes, resolute with his decision regarding compensation and insisted he had not and did not wish to change his mind on the subject. End quotes. Of course, I respect C's views. In the circumstances, it is not appropriate to make a compensation order. The Crown seek an order for costs under Section 18 of the Prosecution of Offences Act 1985. I adjourn that application and will make directions for its determination. In the case of each of you, I impose the statutory surcharge order in the sum of £190. In each of your cases, the offence you committed is so serious that neither a fine nor a community sentence can be justified. A life sentence is not appropriate, and I do not consider that you are dangerous so as to merit the imposition of an extended sentence. Accordingly, in each case I pass a determinate custodial sentence with the shortest term that is commensurate with the seriousness of the offence, taking account of the aggravating and mitigating features. You will each serve part of the sentence in custody before being released on licence. When you are released, you will be on licence until the end of your sentence. You must comply with the terms of the licence and commit no further offences. Otherwise, you will be liable to serve a further period in custody. The disclosure and barring service will include each of you in the lists of those who are barred from working with vulnerable adults or children. You may ask the service to be removed from the lists. The Sentencing Council has published guidelines for offences of human trafficking, contrary to Section 2 of the Modern Slavery Act 2015. You have each been convicted of conspiracy to commit that offence. The offence that you committed is closely related to the guideline offence. I reject the defence submissions that the guidelines are not apt to cover this particular form of trafficking. I have close regard to the guidelines. I turn to the question of harm. The transplant did not go ahead, but you each intended that it should go ahead, and you each intended the harm to the donor that would result, and which was eminently foreseeable. The donor would have faced invasive surgery with a small but still possible risk of death. He would have faced spending the rest of his life with only one kidney and without any funding for the required aftercare. He would have faced an increased risk of early onset raised blood pressure and of developing chronic kidney disease later in life, as well as a lifetime risk of needing dialysis himself or even a kidney transplant. He was at an increased risk because of his young age and his ethnicity. The removal of a kidney amounts to serious physical harm, which has a substantial and long-term effect. Even if C had known that he was going to donate a kidney, I am sure that the risks had not been properly explained to him before he was brought to the UK. He was deceived and pressurised into donating a kidney. I reject the defence assertions that he consented in any meaningful sense. I am sure that he did not. There has been a substantial and long-term adverse impact on his daily life. He is scared to return to Nigeria because of the risk of retribution from those that are sympathetic to you. He lives a solitary existence and is separated from his life, his friends and his family as a direct result of this offence. This all amounts to Category 2 harm within the meaning of the Sentencing Council's guidelines. I do not accept the Crown's submission that the nature and extent of the harm justifies a movement to Category 1.
ekeremadu to 10 years
But it does warrant
now,
an
when I don't watch this
upwards
video, she don't say,
adjustment
this
within the
unit of
category
they are
range.
very, very greedy. This
The fact
particular
that the
man
transplant
is a
was
very
not
greedy
carried
somebody.
out
Wife, a very
merits a
wicked
downwards
and greedy
adjustment.
soul. Why I
But the
talk
level
so
of
now
that
for the video
adjustment
now
is
I say I
limited,
watch and I hear about myself
because
now when the
firstly,
judge
the
talk say
gravamen of the
they don't even
offence
offer
is the
they
agreement
don't even
that you
offer this
reached
boy
to
better
exploit
money.
the
Now
donor.
only person picking kidney
The
kidney when they
offence
know they
was
sell for
complete
market.
at
This one
that
na human
point.
kidney, not be foul kidney. Una
The
not
offence
feel okay.
focuses
Since I don't
on
even
the
get person
conduct
when
of the
go stand for
offender
na daughter. Una not
rather
feel
than
even
the
give this guy
harm that is
better
caused
money.
to the victim.
At least even buy a better house.
Secondly,
Then put
you
better
did
money for
not
your account. Maybe like
withdraw
100
from the
million. Give
conspiracy.
100 million naira house. Give
The
100
only
million
reason that the transplant did not take place
money for account.
was because the
Then
hospital
the people not say yes.
refused
Now
to
the people
carry
go
it
the
out.
people say, "Mona come collect the kidney." We did use kidney
In
to
each
do.
case,
But
your
based on say the boy na
reaction was
poor
to
person,
seek
na
to
poor
exploit
family for come.
others.
Una want just use and they after na
And
use and
thirdly,
finish.
quite
Now
apart
just
from
it
the
up and then
harm
when
that
the
would
boy
have
don't get
resulted
this
from a
side
transplant,
effect of what you do,
C
the kidney
has
transplant, the side
resulted
effect, maybe don't they
has
go hospital,
suffered
don't they faint, they wake up.
substantial
Una go just
actual
stick by
harm
and kukuma by and
of the
finish, make the
nature
matter just
that
end.
I
After
have
all, the poor
identified.
not get voice for Nigeria.
I turn
And
to
the wife dey
culpability.
involved for this. Okay, you when be the
You,
wife, you not fit
Abina,
tell your husband,
Abeta,
"Who settle this boy
fall
well."
within the
Una not
high
just get plan for the boy on
culpability
how to settle the boy.
bracket.
Una wanna just to
You
use the
played
boy.
a leading
use and feel
role
maybe
in the
only God
offending.
na even know what it be the.
You
their mind,
identified the
wetin be their
donor
plan.
and controlled
Maybe
him
their plan
throughout
was
the
even after they
process.
remove the kidney, they fit even sick by the boy
You
for
did
table
so
like,
in
for
the
the hospital bed. Maybe they
expectation
give
of
us
substantial financial reward.
injection. Doctor come outside go talk say the
I reject
operation
your
was not
assertion
successful because
that
this kind of people they
there's
get
no
that kind of mind.
evidence of
For you not to even get
substantial
financial support
advantage.
like financial reward or something
bank
when you
statements
compensation when
show
we say you don't
otherwise,
put for ground when we say
and
you don't even give the
demonstrate
boy
that
before
you
now
were
or
reliant
they
on the
put for ground
funds you
agreement say
secured from
okay
the
now this one be your own
ekeremadu
and the guy go
family
dey say go dey go the
keep
thing go
your
dey
head above
you never even
water.
get am for ground that one
You
e mean
applied
say
a high
you and
degree
your
of
wife
planning and
una sabi
premeditation.
use person and una dey very greedy and very
example,
selfish
you
una sabi
arranged
use
the
person so
visa.
this guy was just like
You secured
one
a
of
fabricated
na
affidavit.
victim una wan still use
And
na
you
wan still try and
organised
after na
a
use am
scheme
na buy am na
to
so
seek
but
to deceive
the
the
luck when the boy come
clinicians
get be say
and
na UK
ultimately
this
the
whole thing
human
he can't still
tissue
use the brain
authority.
he can't still use the brain for
You
UK
were
can't still speak
thoroughly
out
dishonest
because maybe I
throughout.
think na we still carry come Nigeria
You
una for
kept
still
a
silence the boy
substantial
because
sum of
all those
money
kind people
that
they know
was
they like
paid by
make they leave their record
ekeremadu
open they like
and
to
was
close all their
intended
track
for the donor.
after all Nigeria no law so even
You,
when issue come out like they say
ekeremadu, also
go police
fall
station
within
or
the
they carry the
high
matter go court
culpability bracket.
which judge wants
You also played
come
a
sit for that
leading
kind matter
role in
when
the
you give the
offending.
boy family justice
to a
or when you
greater
give the boy
extent
justice
than
e no
Abina
dey not be for
Abeta,
Nigeria when be say
who was
every lawyer dey
acting
collect
through
bribe when be say
ekeremadu
all the lawyers for Nigeria they
at
are all
your
hungry
direction.
our politicians don use hungry beat all of them
You
so
did
when they
so
give them
in
small
order
bag of
to
money when they give them
secure
small
a
money
material
the money go be like
advantage,
billions for their
namely a
eye so they are all
human
hungry
kidney
so
for
no
your
justice
daughter.
anymore they don use they
You
don
were involved in a high degree of planning
they don
and
cage
premeditation.
those lawyers to the extent say they
For
no go fit even
example,
stand talk truth
you
because why they go
orchestrated the
use money
arrangements
they buy their
with your
truth
brother Dewey.
they go use money buy their
You
truth.
sought to
It's
conceal
not nice
your link
for all those other
to the
politicians when we say
payment
they
of
see
a
they do
donor
kere waka
reward
something illegal
by
they do all those
instructing a
kind
member
of things
of
for
your
back when they say
staff
their
to
hand
make
now
the
hand never
payment
meet them
via
they
a
go dey talk
currency
now for their
trader.
mind say this man not wise
You
he
were
not sharp na make a
involved
hand
in the
meet am
corruption
my dear no be say he
of
not
a
wise no be say he
member
not
of
sharp
hospital
wetin he
staff.
so na him he dey
I
read
reject
so
the
they
defence
say one day for
suggestion that
every
you
day
were
for the thief
naive
one day for the
as
owner
to offers
you when they
or
talk say he not
payments
smart
of
he
a
not sharp maybe the one
reward
wey
to
go
the
happen to
donor,
you the way God
or
go dey
that you
expose
only
you when go
joined
dey
the
the way God go
conspiracy
dey
at a late
expose you the way the
stage.
God go dey release the judgment
I am
upon you
satisfied
sef you
so
no go
that I am
believe am
sure
because most of una
that
wey be
you were the
politician na feel
driving
say
force
Nigeria
throughout.
youth are useless and they are
Reliance is
lazy
placed
una no
on
dey
the
see
fact
the
that
good
you
in
had
them
no
na how una
contact
want to
with
use them
C
una go collect
or
our resources
Abina
una go
Abeta.
use am carry am go dey
That
invest
is
for another
true.
country not even in the
But it is
not
an
even in
indicator
Nigeria so
of
that
the
make the
leading
Nigeria
role
youth
you
go still even
played,
see job at least month go
directing
end
the
na go pay salary
overall operation,
they no go carry the
but
money go dey buy
keeping your
house for
distance
Dubai other
by
country
getting
carry am go
others
other
to do
country
your
go
bidding.
invest am for other country.
I accept
Leaving
that
our
you were
youth
not directly
roaming about the
involved in the
streets
fabrication
they
of
go
an
anywhere they don't
affidavit,
get work to work graduate
and that
full
you
has no
told
job
Sonia not to sign
at
it.
the end of the day now come as I said the youth
Again,
dey useless how
in
they dey
context,
lazy how they dey
that is
useless
consistent
nobody
with the
dey
type of
useless it's just that they
leading
don't see
role you
opportunity
played.
because why
You
our
well
government are
knew
very very
the
wicked
sorts of
and bad
steps that were being
that is why we are
taken
saying this time
to try
around
and
we'll get
pull
am
the
right collect.
wool
A whole
over the
kidney like
eyes
this
of the
family won't collect
doctors
for person
and
hand, so the red
regulators.
eye, they see they won't collect a whole
I'm
human
satisfied
kidney
that you,
for this boy.
Beatrice
Can I give their
Ekeremadu,
daughter? But see the way
performed
that they
more
handle the
limited
matter.
functions
See
under
the way
the
that they handle, as if
direction
now
of
maybe
your
now
husband.
granules they won't buy, as they want to
I
follow this boy
accept
buy,
the
as if na
submission
granule they want make the boy
of
supply them.
Anuma
You guys are
Hindu
wicked.
King's Council,
Make our
that
politician
your
make una
family was
change. Make una
patriarchal
change, oh, because
and you were
God dey vex for
deferential
una.
to
Make una
your
change.
husband.
Make una change. You dey power, not me say you dey
Your
above
role
God.
was
You fit dey
primarily
above
to
the law based on
adopt
say
the
na dey use money
cousin
dey buy
lie.
truth for Nigeria.
There was,
but
so
if
far
God
as
mean
you
say,
are concerned,
he go
some
handle your
limited
case,
planning and
handle your case.
premeditation.
See now, even the rich also
committed
cry.
the offence
I'm
in
not
the expectation
I'm not
of a
like
material
the girl,
advantage,
I just
namely
pray the sins of
securing
the father not
a
go affect
kidney
her
for
because
your
what papa
daughter.
dey so and what mama dey
Your
so.
case
If they reach
falls at
pikin
the
body.
cusp
If they reach
of
pikin
lower
body,
and
what papa dey so,
medium
mama dey so. If
culpability.
they reach pikin body, if this will not come
Before
out
allowing
to
for
public, if this will not
aggravating
enter
and
online, if this will not
mitigating
come out,
factors,
as in not come out, enter
the
social media,
applicable
God no
starting
expose am.
points
We not go know say
are
this kind of people wey
custodial
reach like this.
sentences of
They
10
get this
years
kind of
in
big
the
problem for
case
inside
of
house.
Abina Abeta,
Now be the thing.
10
We no go know
years
say
and
they get
6
this kind of
months
problem.
in the
Why
case
they
of
not go get this kind of problem when they say
Ekeremadu,
we dey thief money, they
and
thief
6
money,
years in the
billions
case
of naira
of
when we say na go dey do
Beatrice
something for the
Ekeremadu.
whole masses. One person
Abina
go carry
Abeta, stand up,
money
please.
when we say the when the whole
There are
the whole
aggravating
generation of
features in your
youth for
case.
Nigeria go dey better.
You
One person go
deliberately
put am for account, he
targeted
go
a
sit down, he go dey
victim
eat am,
who was
he go put- he go-
particularly
as in,
vulnerable
he go say make the rest
due
people
to
dey
his
suffer.
young age,
Then you say make God not punish
his
you. Why God not
isolation
go
from his
punish you?
immediate family,
Karma is real. People when they
and
say
his
karma, not be
poverty.
real karma. Karma is real. Most of them when they
After the
receive their own karma, they
conspiracy
don't come
to
out and
exploit
talk.
C
Now the
was
one when you
thwarted,
expose, now we know.
you
If this one not
continue
exposed,
to
now God not
try
expose.
and
We not
find
go say
another person
even
to be
upon the whole money.
exploited
See the
in
kind
the
thing
same way.
when they find
As against that,
see the kind of problem
you
where
have
they try to
no
handle.
previous convictions,
Why you go try to handle?
and you were
won't
a
even see
person
handle
of
this kind of
good
matter.
character.
Person they when say when
I
be say
accept
una
that
don't
you
even
have
see
done
person.
much
Why
good
not
work
compensate
as
the
a
person
medical
well? Why not
doctor.
compensate the family well? Now one do
You
an illegal,
also have your
It's like,
own
now one
serious
use the boy.
medical
After I don't
condition.
use and finish, now go buy am.
As someone
Now
who
buy
has
am finish,
himself
maybe when the family
undergone
come out
a
and they
kidney
cry, people go think say
transplant,
na just fake news.
I've taken
rumor.
account
Now go use
of
money
the
short
medical
the social media down.
evidence.
Use money short the
That
court
does not
room down.
suggest
Use money short
that
everybody
your
down.
condition cannot
My
be
dear, God
adequately
be pastor
managed
of
in
una. That is
custody.
just the truth. God
I
be
consider
pastor all
that
of
the
una. This
mitigating
one are
and
time for vengeance
aggravating
for all the
factors
politicians
are
we don't
in
want to see good
balance.
for our body.
I sentence
We don't
you
want to see
to
good
10
for Nigeria
years
youth body.
imprisonment,
They know they think about the youth future.
subject to allowing for the time
They are not
for which
thinking
you've been
the government are
remanded
not
in
thinking about
custody.
themselves. They are thinking about
You will spend 2/3 of that
to come,
time in
50 years to
custody
come, 100 years to come, how
and will
their,
then be
their
on
youth,
licence
how their future
until the
will be.
end of
How
your
they invest
sentence.
into their future.
You can sit
No,
down,
Nigeria
please.
don't they do like that. Any resources when they see, they will carry go
Senator
outside country.
Ekeremadu,
Go they buy
stand up,
house.
please.
Go they carry woman. They
There are
flex. That one they
substantial
do.
aggravating
Now make our
features in
sister
your
Georgina
case.
honor and say,
You
assuming
knew that the
they even
donor
give
was
the
vulnerable
man
because of
200
his
years
young
imprisonment
age
with
and
a
his
wife, if for
poverty.
just go like that. Because if you really come
You
look into
had a
this, you see say these are
profound
politicians. They don't
understanding
even need to be pity
of
for
the
them.
impact
Their
of
hearts now
poverty.
back a day. Another
Because of
person
the
picking, you
work
won't
you
take a
have
kidney, you
done
don't
to
settle
the
around well.
ECOA
Now make our
Foundation.
that. I know if as I see her write up, I
You
agree
gave
with her
direct
because our
instructions
politicians they
to
don't do us
ensure
which this one at
that
time make
tight
this one our
control was
prayer we don't pray for
exercised
years. Say make God
overseas.
give us freedom, give us
Once the
judgment. Make
transplant
judge
did not go ahead,
make judge the evil ones
you
for inside.
immediately
Now
sought
they
to
happen to
find
the one
another
after the other.
person
I made the rest
to be
learn.
exploited
Make them
in the
repent. If
same
not, now so
way.
that God will bring their leg one come
Rapidly
out one after
managing
the
to
other.
identify
He go carry the case,
several
go
potential
a highway when we
candidates.
say they no go fit use their money
As
settle the
against
case for
that,
back
you have
for
your
backyard.
own
Thank you for
ongoing
watching.
health
Please subscribe
problems.
and share.
You have no previous convictions and were a person of good character. I accept Mr. Hicks KC's description of you as having exceptionally positive good character, and that your conviction represents a very substantial fall from grace. You set up the ECOA Foundation and have funded that organisation, which undertakes a very great deal of valuable charitable work to help those living in poverty in Nigeria. At trial, there was a great deal of character witness testimony, including from Archbishop Emmanuel Chukwuma, the Archbishop for the Diocese of Enugu. I have been provided with a bundle of 51 pages of character statements for the purpose of sentencing. I have read all of them. They include statements from a former President of Nigeria, the current President of the Senate, the Bishop of Enugu, the Attorney General and the Chief Law Officer of Nigeria, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. That evidence speaks to your role in helping to establish and maintain democracy in Nigeria, and also as an international peacemaker. The evidence also includes moving pleas advanced by some of those who have benefited from your generosity and good works, and also a moving statement from your daughter, Sonia. I take all of that into account. It amounts to substantial mitigation. You were motivated by the despair of your daughter's very serious illness. The weight to be attached to that factor is limited by reason of the fact that, as you recognised in your evidence, you could have sought a genuinely altruistic donation, including from a family member, albeit not Sonia's immediate siblings. After taking account of the aggravating and mitigating factors in your case, I impose a sentence of 9 years and 8 months imprisonment, subject to allowing for the time which you have spent remanded in custody. You will serve 2/3 of the sentence in custody and will be on licence thereafter for the rest of the sentence. You can sit down. Dr. Beatrice Ekeremadu, would you stand up, please? In your case, I adopt a starting point of 6 years custody. I do not consider that the aggravating factors that are present in the case of your co-defendants apply to you. You were not directly involved in the identification of the donor, and the evidence does not show that you were directly involved in the attempts to identify a further donor after the transplant did not go ahead. I take account of all the mitigating features that Mr. Mahindru KC has identified and the content of the thorough and helpful pre-sentence report prepared by Jessica Stephen of the Probation Service. You are a person of good character. You helped set up the ECOA Foundation with your husband, and you have been closely involved with its important charitable work. Much of the character evidence I have read applies also to you. You were also motivated by the desperate plight of your daughter and by maternal love. Further, in your case, I accept that although Sonia is an adult, you have substantial caring responsibilities towards her. Your incarceration will have a significant impact on her, in that she will no longer be able to rely on your presence as a source of care and support. Having regard to those factors, I impose a sentence of 4 years and 6 months imprisonment. You have spent 234 days on an electronically monitored curfew between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. I specify that the credit period for the purposes of Section 240A of the Criminal Justice Act 2000